Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Moses in Missing, available on Amazon, paperback and ebook, coming soon, Missing 2, Double Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including theories, quiz of pains, and King David Psalms, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner, and check out the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, also on Spotify, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, and more. Check it out, 50 podcast platforms, heard in 110 countries. We're here with an amazing author and neuroradiologist, attended University of Michigan Medical School, completed his training at Brown and Yale Universities, grew up in suburban Detroit as an only child, and stories of his parents escaped from communist Hungary. And we'll talk about that. And new book, it's a true story of one of the most unknown chapters in the Holocaust following the transformation of a young man confronting anti-Semitism. The book is called Not a Real Enemy, live, ladies and gentlemen, at Plus Studio, somewhere in beautiful downtown Florida. The amazing author and neuroradiologist attended University of Michigan, and the book Not a Real Enemy, the multi-talented Robert Wolf. Robert, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm very honored. Appreciate it. It's nice to meet you and great to be on your show.
Well, it's great to have you on board too, Robert. You're an author, a neuroradiologist, attended University of Michigan Medical School, completed your training at Brown and Yale Universities. You grew up in suburban Detroit as an only child, and sharing stories of your parents' escape from communist Hungary and father's tragic history of escaping the Nazis twice, but losing his own parents. And you have a book, which is a true story of one of the most unknown chapters in the Holocaust, following transformation of young man confronting anti-Semitism, cruelty, kindness, despair, hope, and freedom, everything. And of course, also nearly 500,000 of the Hungarian Jews deported and killed during the Holocaust. The book is called Not a Real Enemy. And before getting on, Robert, tell us how you first got started.
Well, if you knew me 6, 7 years ago, you'd say this guy would never write a book about the Holocaust. I'm not a
or
writer.
maybe on a podcast. I mean, we're all in the same boat, right?
I'm not right. I'm a science and a math guy. But in the '70s, the book's a biography about my dad. It's also an adventure because there's 20 miracles in the book, 4 escapes. We can talk more about that down the road. Four-time escape artist. A lot of miracles, and the story is about anti-Semitism in the backdrop throughout the book. And so when my mom and dad, they wrote his autobiography when they finally got settled in the United States in the '70s, and he was established as an OBGYN. By the way, that's the punchline. He ended up delivering 10,000 babies in the Detroit area. Redemption for sure, if you can call it that. It doesn't bring back the 6 million Jewish people, and it doesn't bring back the 50 million that died in World War II, but it's certainly bringing life into the world. So, and he was my hero that way. I mean, since ninth grade, that's all I wanted to do was become a doctor. So I became a radiologist, following in his footsteps. Backlog to the '70s. So they wrote the autobiography. They wrote the stories as though they'd happened the previous day. Covers Hungary. So it's a history book too. It covers Hungary from the end of World War I to the end of the Hungarian Revolution in 1956. So it's about a 40-year span, and ends up in their quest for freedom. So I was inspired by they wrote the autobiography in the '70s as though the stories happened the previous day, and then it was paper and pencil to typewriter to computer to disc. I may have read the manuscript once 30 years ago, didn't think much of it. I was a busy guy now, practicing radiology, family, all that stuff. I didn't think much except for his first escape, and I remembered that vividly. Although my dad and mom would talk about the Holocaust, on and on. More so in the second half of my life, I almost got burnout from it. Holocaust fatigue, they call it. So, needless to say, Dad passes away in '97. Unfortunately, Mom passed away in 2016. A historian friend of mine hands me, it's now on a disc, and she says, "You've got to read this." Didn't think much of it at the time. Took a year to take care of my mom's affairs, and then I retired for a year. And a friend of mine, a radiologist, never burn your bridges, a good lesson there. An old partner said, "Look, we're short a radiologist. You want to work for us a couple of days a week, remotely from home?" And I did, and that brought me to the book. So as a radiologist, we have 2 screens. The left screen is the patient list or queue, and the right screen are the images. So between cases, the left screen was my dad's autobiography, and the right screen was me dictating his biography. So now we're at 2018, 2019, we finally finish. I moved to Florida. I'm not getting anywhere as far as queries. So I got a couple of beta reads in 2020, 2021, And one of them, another author, said, "Look, hook up with Janice Harper, who's my co-author, who is a miracle worker." So she took the project for a year and change. She's a book coach. She's a writer herself. She's an author. Wrote about Madagascar of all places. Talk about unknown. Anyway, so the book became special. She turned it into instead of just A to B to C, she turned it into a special novel. Stories in and out of order, conversations, letters to and from home. And like my parents did, the sights, the sounds, the smells, the fear, very palpable in the way the story is formulated. And then bottom of the ninth shoestring catch, we got Amsterdam publishers to publish the book for us
Oh, wow.
with great enthusiasm. So this is where we're at. It's not an easy process. It's very different than training with science and math and anatomy. Being a writer, an author, a concert violinist, a rock band, any type of performer. It's a fickle and difficult business, but this is my corner of it for the last 6, 7 years, just kind of fighting anti-Semitism in my own way and doing a lot of programs, podcasts like this. Thank you. Book signings, book presentations, about 37 and counting, just over 100 podcasts, and 24 TV and radio interviews. I guess maybe I can call this a combination of a podcast and radio interview. I don't know. I
or,
don't know
or
how
or it
far
could
that's
be
going
like
to
a
get.
TV broadcast or however you want to do it. I mean, you can combine everything: podcast, radio, TV. Some people convert to print, some people convert to a book and whatever. It's like, I mean, this is access 24/7, 365. Call it whatever you want. This is like the new media here, which is great.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yeah, I was motivated by the stories, the miracles and the way like the dad wrote his stories in such a sharp, well put together. He knew the history. Of course, we researched the history, both myself and my co-author, and we had a few historians review it to make sure it was accurate. And certainly things were tweaked, but we wanted to make sure that the book was bulletproof. Even the cover is a beautiful cover. And the guy that did it is Croatian. He was a little Meshuggah. He was a little eccentric. Did it all over online, over email. But for the money we spent, he did an amazing job. And the book's won 4 awards too, which another miracle in itself. I'm not the type for self-congratulations or to tap myself in the back, but it does mean that people in the know appreciated the quality of the work and the importance of the work. And I owe my team, not only my co-author Janice, but my friend Mark, who's been with me on the journey. He's helped me with the website and learning about socials and on and on and on. And it also doesn't mean much if it doesn't help me in the fight against anti-Semitism. I mean, awards are nice, but if it's not helping me with getting the message across, then it doesn't really mean much either.
I also thought about it too with your parents being involved as well too. That my understanding that your mom was one of the main interesting participants in survivors of their show back from the 1990s. I mean, that was definitely work right there. Very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know exact number of people that they interviewed, but she was one of them, and so she made the cut. I have a copy of that disc. I need to look at that again before discs become obsolete too, But yeah, she was a part of that. And my mom and dad were both, especially my mom. She was a big Holocaust educator, and they were very active and respected in the medical community, the Jewish community, the general community, and she talked a lot about history, and not only the Holocaust but also the communists and repressive regimes in general. For the Hungarians, they didn't get a break for 100 years, and even now, I'm questioning the rise of anti-Semitism. Is Orban friendly to the Hungarians, to the Jewish people? Because a lot of people weren't. Never mind Hitler and the Arrow Cross, for example, the police, Hungarian police, kind of like the Gestapo, worse to the Jews than the Nazis themselves, and well documented, very horrible stuff.
hmm I was just thinking about it too. Talk about Hungarian Jews enduring this torture for 100 years. How do you think this torture compares to other European countries, like in England or like in Scotland or France or, of course, Germany, or say with let's see, Finland or Sweden, or any of the Jews residing in those areas? How much torture do you think compares to the other countries the other Jews were in as well, being persecuted the Holocaust?
Well, if you're talking about world, because I was thinking when you mentioned all these countries, I'm thinking about today after October 7th, because what's going on today is certainly comparable with what happened in Europe in the 30s. Now, maybe it's not to the same extent or the same scale, but it certainly could turn quicker than that. And for us, it's Judeo-Christian enemies because it's the people that are the enemies now are these the jihadists, the extremists. So back then, as far as statistics, I believe, and don't quote me, I think Poland and Russia had more people murdered during the Holocaust, and I think Hungary was third or fourth.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Okay.
and it was all in a matter of months. It was an accelerated genocide. I mean, and this happened in 42 also when the Germans were seemingly losing the war or getting drilled. That's when their charge became accelerated to murder more people. And so, unfortunately, for Hungary, and, they were almost through the end of the war. But my dad was taken away to the forced labor camp in 43, and a couple months later, soon his parents were taken to a ghetto, a collecting place in their hometown, and then they were all hauled off to Auschwitz. So, and many were killed immediately. My dad's spot. My dad knew my parents their destinies in Auschwitz from another witness that he met months after the war had ended. It's another miracle how we found out. So I mean, it's bad closure, but at least it's closure. And the good news was, I mean, I can't say it's good news, but his mom didn't have to suffer. She was taken right away to the gas chambers with an orphaned child, unfortunately. And then his dad died about a week later, probably cholera. He was assigned to clean out the stool, the latrines from the
Oof.
bunks. Really not because he was a doctor. He said, "Well, I'm a dentist. I could be useful. I'm a doctor," and that's the best he got. So really not, really hearing stories. But if it were me, it'd be better than starving for months and being tortured and slave labored and humiliated. We've been talking about humiliation a lot in this journey too.
Mhm.
It's a part of it. Nobody
It,
deserves that, of course.
it made me think too about the treatment the Hungarian Jews have endured as well too, comparing Poland, Russia, and all that. Why were the Hungarian Jews were sort of targeted? What was the extreme hate about it?
Well, I don't know if it's singled out to Hungarian Jews. It's just Jews in general. I mean, if you were a Jew, you were screwed. And it wasn't just the Nazis. Even after World War I, Admiral Horthy was in charge, and the Jews thought that he was not friendly to the religion, to the race. And then there's the Red Terror, the White Terror, pro-communist, anti-communist. You need a program to keep track. But no matter what, the poor people in that country thought, you're a Jew, you're screwed. I mean, they didn't. There was nobody that was friendly to them. And then, of course, the rise of fascism. And then even after the communists took over, they couldn't have Jewish weddings, very, very strict, very repressive. And it was true in Poland as well. All the Czech Republic, but then Czechoslovakia, Romania. So, it brings up another good point. If the United States had rescued Hungary rather than Russia, I probably wouldn't be here. I would have been raised in Hungary, a democratic society, and if I was lucky, get into medical school there and live there all my life. But
Mhm.
that's not what happened.
You talked about U.S. Saving Russia instead of Hungary as well too. What was the basis behind U.S. coming in to save the Russians, Jews instead of Hungary? Just made me think of it.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's just they divided and conquered. I mean, I'm not a huge. I know my little corner of history, but there's certain parts of history, like the war part. I'm not real familiar with the battles or the strategies, truthfully. But yeah, Americans had their hands full trying to rescue the West, right? Helping with England, France, Germany, Austria, as it turns out, and, neighboring Hungary. So it was that close that they could have. And meanwhile, the Soviets they helped free up, of course, Poland and Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and it's just the way it worked. And then in the East, in the Pacific, I should say is it the Pacific East or West? I don't know. Obviously America, but we had our allies, of course, too. So Italy bailed early, and that's about that's a bit. All of Europe got hit. And I was just came from Corfu, for example, one of the Greek islands. 2,000 Jewish people died at Auschwitz. They were hauled
Wow.
all the way from the Greek islands all the way to Auschwitz, if you can believe that. So it's an eye opener. Another eye opener is when we talk about pets in the Holocaust. We don't really talk, and women, slave laborers, Hungarian women slave laborers in the Holocaust, which is an eye opener. I don't know that much about it, but and we don't talk about it in the book, but it's definitely a topic as well, something to
Hmm. And
research.
how about child labor as well too? You talk about pets being enslaved, women forced into labor. What about the children?
No doubt about it. We've all seen Schindler's List, and you see what that's about. The same kind of
I've
thing.
seen that. I was just
It's
couldn't bear to
devastating.
watch.
That movie, if my dad's story ever became a movie, it would be Schindler's List on steroids because the escapes would make it even more so. But seeing that movie after doing this book versus before it, there are so many comparisons. And I talked about this a few weeks ago with another host, and we compare a lot of the stuff that very comparable with 1941 Poland with what happened in 43, 44 Hungary. But yeah, child labor was a part of it. Clothes, collecting suitcases and collecting the bric-a-brac out of the suitcases, saving whatever, all kinds of things. They were put to work. My dad was a kid when he was in forced labor camp. He was what, 21, 22, never lived outside of the house, never worked, had to work manual labor or hard in his lifetime, and all of a sudden he's put into a forced labor camp. So that saved his life because he was useful, because he was a young man who could work. And 5% of those slave laborers survived, which is a remarkable number if you think about it, because thousands have been. So my dad was one of them because he was on the run or hiding at the end of the war. So he was not. The rest of them, unarmed, were treated as POWs. So just because they were a part of the paramilitary, very
Mhm.
sad.
And of course, your dad had those four escapes and 20 miracles and everything like that. We'll cover some of those with Robert Wolf of the book, Not a Real Enemy. But first, listen to The Mike Wagner Show, themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios. Visit online at soundcloudstudios.com for all your needs. Look at a professional website without breaking a budget. SoundCloud Studios is the answer. SoundCloud Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today, 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 20% off your first project. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, time to give official shout out to our official sponsor of the Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Molson-Zia. If you love fast-paced mysteries, you'll love Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon, a paperback and ebook. Missing is fast-paced and intriguing with an unforgettable twist. Takes place in 4 countries, 2 strangers, 1 target, where truth is illusion and those will love you to first go missing. It's available on Amazon, a paperback and ebook. Missing by Mia Molson-Zia has got great reviews. And Evil Evan enjoys by Howard celebrities, including Joe Cassie, Forrest Riley, and many others. So grab your copy today, for It Goes Missing by Mia Molson-Zia, available on Amazon. Coming soon, Missing 2, Double the Suspense, Double the Fun. Check it out on Amazon. Also brought to you by A Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner, based on the life of David, including theories, quiz of pains, and King David's Psalms. The Sweet Psalmist gives a new perspective of David through the Psalms he wrote as the time of their shepherd where it started, and complicate yet turbulent relationship with King Saul. It's a story of love, betrayal, repentance, hope, and more. Check out The Sweet Psalmist by Serena Wagner on Amazon. Keyword Sweet Psalmist Serena Wagner. Also, check out the Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com. 50 podcast platforms, 110 countries. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. And for great gift ideas like t-shirts, pop sockets, throw pillows, tote bags, hoodies, Amazon.com. Keywords, the Mike Wagner Show podcast. And for more great gift ideas, Amazon.com/Mia Molson-Zia. Great books, merchandise, and more. And follow the Mike Wagner Show on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Anchor FM, Apple Music, YouTube, BitChute, Rumble, 50 podcast platforms in over 110 countries. Check it out today. We're here with the amazing author and neuroradiologist, attended University of Michigan, Robert Wolf, here on the Mike Wagner Show, and the book Not a Real Enemy, and covering your dad as well too. 4 escapes and 20 miracles, and talk about one of the 4 escapes as well. We'd like to hear about it.
I'd be happy to. Well, his first was definitely harrowing, and it was toward the end of the war. My dad just had a foot infection, and
Ooh.
he went to he had to walk to the hospital, which is who knows how far away, hours and hours. Walk to the hospital. The cleanliness in the hospital was horrific. The doctor who saw him said to him, "Well, it doesn't really matter if I treat your foot or not. You're going to be dead soon." That's what I can you imagine your doctor actually saying that to you? So that's
Probably for
memorable.
insurance purposes nowadays, or avoid malpractice. It's
Right.
like 2 options, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, yeah, now you got a 20-page you get these 20-page contracts
Oh
that nobody
God,
wants to
don't get
read
me
or
on.
can't understand even if you do
Ugh.
read it in microprint. Anyway, there was none of that. It was just men and marching. So he gets back to the in the middle of nowhere, Carpathian Mountains, and it's cold. It's winter, and he and his friend Frank, who had been with him in the forced labor camp throughout, and they've been to multiple spots, and it was very harrowing. Getting urinated on while digging ditches, getting shelled at by Russian planes, even though these guys were unarmed. Some of the stories of the people getting injured. A musician, for example, very sad, tragic story, professional musician. Needless to say, they thought that they were on the death march. There wasn't a lot of information, but they thought they were on a death march. we all know about them from Okinawa and the Pacific, but we don't talk about them for these forced labors. So they really thought so. They had about a 3 day window to escape, to get off, and they marched in line and they waited till dusk, and then boom, they took off like on the count of three. And Chris Berman rumbling, stumbling, bumbling in the wintry thicket with just maybe a backpack, and just getting the hell out of there so that they could hide somewhere in the shrubs in an area that they didn't know at all in the mountains. So a third guy follows him. He wasn't part of the plan, but a third guy follows him. He gets caught. And can you imagine hiding in the thicket and hearing the guards beating him, and the dogs barking, and you got away, and this guy didn't. It turns out this guy survived, though, if I remember correctly. They
Wow.
found
Okay.
out after the fact. So amazing that they didn't kill him, and that. So, and he and his friend Frank, they were supposed to split up. A little miracle about that story too, but they ended up meeting back up after escaping and hiding for hours in the dark in the shrubs. Finally, making their way down the mountain, find the railroad tracks, head toward Budapest, which is scary enough because we talk about the end of the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, what is that? I mean, you escaped. You're free for 10 minutes, but you don't know where your next meal's coming from. You don't know where you're going to be sleeping. You don't know if
Right.
you're going to have a job. You've got the stupid yellow bands on, so you could get hunted anyway. Every time a train goes by, you've got to hide, and you're pretty much hiding till the end of the war. But and also with that, they didn't know if it depended who won the war, if the Germans or the Hungarians or the United States. If they end up in Austria, but the Germans win the war, they're probably worse off than they were in Hungary. So they had that unknown too. Amazing story, and they got away from they and then they got double crossed once in Budapest. They had a lot of friendly people helping them, but not everybody. So some truck driver uh, takes them. He double crosses them. He takes them to what they call the dog pound, where they collected escaped forced laborers. So now they're imprisoned again, and they're thinking they're going to die or get tortured or get sent back to a place that was worse than they were. They escaped. It was right. It was unbelievable, that story. The split second timing, brains and balls. Sorry, it's that's what it was, and the luck of the Lord, and they got out and right in front of Nazi headquarters between guards. Amazing escape, and that one I forgot about the first time I read it. And then once when he was a med student under communist Hungary, he was tired of the communists. He got to finally get into medical school, but he hated the communist system. So he escaped. He got out and he arguing with an armed Russian soldier, cloak and dagger stories. There was many of the cloak and dagger stories too, and that's he got away. I mean, he got through, but he changed his mind. He was for fear of reprisal. And then finally, with my mom, a very harrowing escape when they left in '56 after the Hungarian Revolution. Mom was a med student at the time. She never got to finish. She never got to go back. My dad was an OBGYN by now, but he had to double down as a trauma surgeon. The Hungarian
Oh.
Revolution, not a lot of people talk about or know about. 3,000 people died, 14,000 injured, a lot of young, that's on both sides, a lot of young women and children who actually started the conflict. And of course, the young soldiers that the Russians sent in with many, many tanks. The Hungarians couldn't win that war at all. But it was a 2 week war, and there were a lot of casualties, refugees, and a lot of destruction. Mom and dad were frontliners. She ran the blood bank while he doubled down as a trauma surgeon. And after all that, they said, enough is enough. 2 wars, another repressive regime. They were closing the borders. The people that really wanted freedom were getting out. And my mom and dad risked their lives to do that. And very harrowing story. Anti-Semitism all the way to Austria, anti-Semitic remarks, and believe it or not, a priest helped them with that last escape, and at the risk of losing his own life. And so a lot of great stories, a lot of sad stories. No sugarcoating. We're just telling it like it is. And like a friend of mine says, if Dad said that that's what happened, then that's what happened. And
Mhm.
there's deniers out there, 9/11 and the Holocaust. It happened. There's enough evidence. The Nazis were unbelievably meticulous about the evidence. They take a lot of photographs and send them home. This is what we're doing every day, and that kind of thing. So, uh,
Mhm. It's kind of like their social media in a sense too. Hey, look what I did. Look who I killed. Look what I can do. Look at this, mom, and all that. So that's her.
yeah, no doubt about it. And I think about, it's funny you mention that because I think about the shoes on the Danube. So the Arrow Cross is like the Gestapo. They're the police. These idiots that treat the Jews worse. So 21,000 people died in 2 months, shot in cold blood on the Danube. And that makes me think, there's no witnesses, there's no lawyers, there's no courtroom, there's no social media or TikTok, or it's just, then the witness was the next victim. So who are you going to tell? So that was a very horrible story. And there was no reason for that at the end of the war. It was really at the end of the war for Hungary. It wasn't like in Schindler, the exact opposite, where all the German soldiers leave Schindler's factory and go home, even though he really invites them literally to kill all those survivors. And boy, would I be nervous if I were in that situation, but they left. But that didn't happen in Hungary.
Hmm. I was just going to ask you about comparing Schindler's List to with Hunger and all. I think you pretty much answered that question. And maybe if you did see Schindler's List, was there anything that was inaccurate about what happens well too compared to what actually happened?
Well, I'm not a big historian about the history of Poland, but and funny they mention Hungary late into the movie because so they're moving along at a 43, 44 towards the end, and now the Hungarians are going through what the Polish people had to go through. But how about this mental torture when this guy, the one of the I think he was the rabbi, he's not making enough trinkets in the factory. So Goth is he takes him outside into the yard and he's going to shoot him in the head and his gun won't go. His gun gets jammed, and then
Oh
he takes
wow.
his other gun and it gets jammed. This is in the movie, and then he gets one of his colleagues, another officer's gun, and that gets jammed. So the poor guy is on his knees. He's got his head to sideways, and he could have been shot, and the guy then he just kicks him in the head or he butts him in the head with the gun and lets him live. I mean, talk about that kind of trauma. And then ironically, when they hung Goth, same thing happened. They had a hard time getting the step stool out from under his feet so they would hang. And so he had to experience the same thing in a similar degree. Well, when my dad was in forced labor camp, there was a drunk officer, excuse me, and somebody was out of line or said something or were talking when they weren't supposed to. And he said, "Look, you guys are going to tell me who the perpetrator is, or I'm going to shoot one out of every 10th one of you." And so, you're secretly counting 1 through 10.
It,
See if
it sounds like
you
Russian roulette in a sense.
it's a Russian roulette, exactly right. It's a Russian roulette, and the guy he never came through with the threat. So yeah, unbelievable. So nobody got killed, but they 1 out of 10 guys. All these guys thought, well, it could be me. So it's the same kind of thing. It's that mental anguish that people have, even though you weren't directly you're humiliated, but you're not exactly hurt or killed. But that's something I would take with me for a long time.
Hmm.
Another thing about Schindler is the in the gas chambers. The scene when they think they're in the gas chamber, but they're actually in a big shower. And I picture my grandmother going into the chambers, and they drop probably cyanide gas, and all you see is a little hole, and you're gone in a couple of minutes. I mean, and so that it's hard. When I visit the Holocaust museums, I can't even get into those trains because I feel it. It's just it's a different type of claustrophobia. It's
Oh,
something that I can look in them and I can look at the pictures and read the history, but for me, the trains are another thing. And that's a scene that kind of sat
oh.
with me.
And made me think of Schindler's List. They're literally stripped of everything and stripped of humility, just stripped all over. I get these images like, oh my gosh, you know.
Well, that's not right. And so were my parents. They lost their house, they lost their belongings. Along this journey, I don't know if I got the right number, but at least 150,000, or maybe it's 350 pieces of art stolen from Hungary, which is
Wow.
it's unreal. Some of it got recovered, a lot of it didn't. Financial retribution, I mean, that's still going on. My mom had a little bit of that from the German government and from the Hungarian government. It wasn't that much, but I'm sure for my mom, it was a huge personal victory, because she was in hiding the whole time throughout the war. So she was lucky to survive, but not as exciting as my dad's story was, but certainly fearful. She was a young kid. My dad was 21, 22. She was 10 or 11 at the time. So
Oh wow. Okay.
yeah, during the war. Yeah, they were 11 years apart. So
That's a big difference as well. And of the four escapes, what was the escape that got your dad and mom into the U.S.?
that was the fourth escape yeah, they were closing down the roads. There were Russian planes overhead with lights on and flares and everything to see. The Russians weren't stupid. They knew people were trying to leave. Uh,
Okay.
so they were chopping down big trees to block the roads. But one of their nights, they were trying to escape, and there was a baby crying. And my dad had some sedation, and he gives the baby sedation with the parents' permission, and it works for like an hour. And then the baby's got this paradoxical, the crying and the screaming. So they had to cancel a night. I mean, and they weren't gonna, they couldn't take the chance. So then the next night, they attempted to escape again, and this time without the kid. But another miracle, they found out, I don't know how, after the fact, that kid and the family made it, and they escaped and got through. And not everyone went to the United States. Some stayed in Europe. A lot went to Israel, Canada, Sweden, Scandinavia. Another great little story. The priest that helped them, my mom and dad, sent the parish money once a year at Christmas time, in
Nice.
thanks of him helping them. And I think that's a great story. And then one day they got the check back, or a letter saying that the man had passed away. So another great story too. So
Hmm.
uh, border guards they had no money to get to Vienna. They say, look, they bribe the border guards with bottles of rum, 2 bottles of rum, and
They'll
so the
say,
guys get
"Yeah, we go," and then
so they
songs.
get drunk, yeah, and they're talking about how Hitler was good and all. They're more anti-Semitism. And my mom and dad, believe me, they wanted to argue with them, but they knew better. Why you've gone this far? Let's just get the hell out of here. Let's go. But they convinced them to lend them some money so that they could just get the train or the bus, just so they can get into Vienna. And then they were good. My mom's stepfather waiting there for them, and they did. They actually, and my mom and dad paid them back. So it's part of integrity, which we talk about in the book presentations: determination, hope, integrity, fear, freedom, and obviously, and ultimately, determination and what was the word? I'm blanking on the last word. It'll come to me. I
I,
already
I'm
mentioned it.
I'm sure it will. And what was the city in the U.S. that your mom and dad end up in? Of course, you had the immigration wave from Europe. They all end up in Ellis Island. What was the city in the U.S. that your mom and dad end up in? The first city.
You know your history. So yes, same thing. They end up in New York City, Ellis Island. She met her father, her estranged father, already divorced and remarried to save the family name during the Holocaust and afterwards. And he was in Providence, Rhode Island, but he drove to New York City to meet them. The red tape was relatively benign because my mom was a med student, my dad was a doctor, and he picked them up in New York City. And that part two of this book, the story would be from Vienna till probably the 70s if we ever do that, but it won't be as important as the book we did. But
Mhm.
strange, she hadn't seen her dad in 18 years, and they had a flat tire, which is a funny story. And I mean, I wanted to end the book with that they just looked at the flat, because now, like in the Florida roads or in the New York roads or whatever, a flat tire would be just a devastating, your day is ruined, right? Because it messes up. But for them, after everything they went through, a flat tire, I don't think there was AAA in the 50s. Maybe there was, but they took care of that. So, and then they went to Providence, Rhode Island for a while, and it was hard for them. They didn't speak much English. They were bored. They weren't getting along with the new wife, and they didn't know where they were going. So, believe it or not, my dad got a residency at the Beth Israel, a Harvard affiliate, which I couldn't get into any Harvard residency in any specialty. But it's
Mhm.
amazing. She's taking, elementary school and high school English, redoing his residency in OBGYN in Boston. So they moved to Boston. And then when they were done, there were no jobs in Boston, late 50s, early 60s. So they ended up in Detroit for a couple of years. And then in 62, they came out to suburbia. They saw the urban blight coming. They saw the uprising of the unrest. And I'm sure they weren't afraid, but it was like, really, do we need more civil unrest and riots? So we've already seen it.
Right. Yeah. And of
So they
course,
got the hell out. Yep.
especially with all the 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 African Americans from the South coming up to Detroit in the first place with better opportunities because the cotton industry had pretty much dried up and Motown started and everything like that. And about your dad, being OB later establishing further in the U.S. How was that system compared to Hungary and comparing to U.S. in terms of education, the health and situation and everything like that? How did it compare to Hungary to U.S. with his OB experience?
Well, that's such a great question, and that'd be an hour answer. But first on that, the cotton versus the automotives. Then in the 70s, we had the recession because the oil industry was booming and the car industry was being replaced with the Japanese and then later the Korean. So that's part of Detroit. That was part of Detroit's problem. Obviously, I still consider myself a Detroiter. One thing I got to say about the healthcare, and I can't speak for OBGYN, but my dad was well regarded as an excellent surgeon. So whoever trained him, and he loved delivering babies, and he would have worked till the day he died. So whoever trained him in Hungary really knew what they were doing because now the technology has always been ahead in the United States and even more so now. But with that has been healthcare expenses, of course. The hospital that he worked at, it was my dad being Jewish, ironically, it was St. Mary's, so it was a private Catholic hospital that had its own church, had its own monastery and nunnery. It was an amazing place. I got to work there for a couple of years as a kid, and uh, and my dad had mitral stenosis because he had rheumatic fever as a kid. So it ended up affecting one of his heart valves, mitral stenosis, and there were no antibiotics at the time back when he was a kid. And if he didn't come to the United States, he probably would have lived till maybe 55, 60. He lived to 74, but he had two open heart surgeries at the Cleveland Clinic. One was for the mitral valve replacement and a bypass, which I don't think Hungary had yet. Maybe they did in the late 70s. And then he had the valve perforated. It was a porcine valve, a pig valve, perforated. So it's another adventure my dad had to go through. Besides everything else, was two open heart surgeries. But if he didn't come to the U.S. and go to the top place like the Cleveland Clinic,
Right.
his life expectancy would have been much less.
hmm And
And
I
then you
think your
talk,
dad sounded like a really amazing man as well, too. And a bit more in a book on Not Real Enemy with Robert Wolf and Bennett. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by SoundCloud Studios, brought to you by official sponsor of The Mike Wagner Show, international warring author Mia Wilson's The Missing, the Sweet Psalm of Special Rating Wagner, based on the life of David including theories, quiz of pains, Ken David Psalms, Amazon.com, keyword Sweet Psalm of Rating Wagner. We'll be back to the amazing Robert Wolf of Not a Real Enemy after this timeout. We're back with Robert Wolf on the Mike Wagner Show with Not a Real Enemy. And just a couple of things, maybe sum up the title of Not a Real Enemy. And, just how'd you come up with the name? I forgot to
oh,
ask you
that's
that earlier. So
great question. No, may I show the book?
absolutely. Show it all you want.
All
It's
right.
your
Well,
time
it's a
here.
little reflection. Sorry about the awards. There are four awards. I can't believe it. I mean, again, it's about the team, and it doesn't mean anything if it doesn't help me with the fight against anti-Semitism. But Not a Real Enemy: The True Story of a Hungarian Jewish Man's Fight for Freedom. Four escapes, 20 miracles, adventure history book. I'm serious about fighting anti-Semitism here in my own little way. I'm doing a lot of these podcasts. If you want to help me with it, I can't fight anti-Semitism myself. So please reach out, do reviews, more podcasts, book presentations. I don't say no to anything. I'm on social media across the board. Rob Wolf on Meta, or Not a Real Enemy by Robert Wolf is my Facebook author page. I'm on X, I'm on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, and Blue Sky. So jump along. I don't just post about the book. We just got back from Europe and it was a great trip. I posted beautiful photos from that. Very privileged and grateful to do that. A couple of years ago, I was in Israel. I love your King David. They're excavating King David's palace, one of them in Jerusalem, and it's a beautiful site. Israel is an amazing country. They say every Jewish person should go to Israel. I say everyone should go to Israel. It's so, I mean, until October 7th, the tolerance was there. We did a lot of Judeo-Christian visiting and a lot of and Islamic as well, and it was well integrated. So that's what I'm trying to do is, like my parents, is get us to be more integrated, to understand other people's personalities, other people's their cultures and religions, and be neighborly because life is short and we have such little time on this planet. So make the most of it. Stop hating, love people, change your vector if you don't like what you're at, what you're doing, and realize what happened to my dad could happen to any one of us, any time. Natural disaster, a war, foreign government, local government, bad neighbor, bad business deal. Appreciate what we have in this country because this book is about the dark world and it exists now in a different way, but the song remains the same.
And what can people more learn from the book?
Say again?
What can people more learn from the book?
Well, besides the history of Hungary and about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism, the messages are clear: integrity, determination, the quest for freedom, um, resilience, redemption is the word I was looking for. Redemption. So, and we all go through hard times in our life, and this is such an inspiring story that it changed my life. And when I get people to tell me how it changed the way they look on life, then I will have done my job. So you learn a little bit about everything, and I get such great feedback. A lot of people say it should be a movie. I kind of agree, but I'm biased, and we'll see. I mean, Tom Cruise plays my dad, four-time escape artist, a lot of running scenes.
just like
Tom,
just like Mission Impossible. What was I? It's gonna be
exactly.
like
Well,
Mission Impossible 100
yeah,
Hungarian style
exactly.
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Not a real enemy instead. Do something different, Tom. Plus, you'll help with the fight against anti-Semitism. Tom Hanks plays one of the nicer guards in the labor camp, if you could call them that. Steven Spielberg directs the movie, but he's done. I've already reached out, sent him a query letter. I got a nice letter back, but he's done with that. Between Schindler and the Shoah movie, and I don't know. It's been a journey that I never thought I would be on. It's been a great learning experience. It's wonderful meeting new people, and I highly recommend that too. It's another way to just meet people like you. And I'm going to Vegas for a live in studio podcast coming up, which is so exciting. That
Nice.
that kind of thing. So that's, Vegas is fun. I'm meeting new people and continuing with the message. And I appreciate you being
And certainly great as well
part of it.
too.
And
And
you're well established.
great, and appreciate as well too. Where can we find your book at, Robert?
Okay, the book is available, Not a Real Enemy, on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. If it's not in your local store, it's online at Barnes and Noble, Walmart, my undergrad alma mater, Tufts University, and it's also available at four Holocaust museums: the Zeckelman in Michigan, the mothership, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. I've done a couple of book signings there. The Illinois Holocaust Museum and Tolerance Center, or I think that's right, and Education Center, excuse me, and then the Holocaust Memorial and Tolerance Center of Nassau County, which I recently did a presentation there. So seek and you shall find. It's there. It's
You,
out there.
you
And
got and what's your website in the meantime?
oh, I appreciate that. RobertJWolfMD.com. And I have a YouTube channel too. So there's
Okay. All right. Well, certainly check that out as well too. Here with the amazing
plenty
multi-talented
of
Robert
content,
Wolf of
videos, and
right, and we're here with the amazing Robert Wolf of Now Real Enemy here on the Mike Wagner Show. Robert, just a few more things. What else can we expect from you 2025 and beyond? Besides going to Vegas afterwards, let's think afterwards. What's that?
well, I'm always querying. So my granddaughter just graduated valedictorian of her class.
Nice.
So that's cool. So I'm going up to Massachusetts for that and her graduation party, and it's her birthday, 18, and then I'm going to Michigan for my 45th year class reunion. And hopefully I'll get a book presentation there in my hometown. When I did one a little while ago, a couple of years ago, we sold out. We sold out the books. We packed the place. So great hometown. That's in Michigan. I'm in talks with Yale, from the Yale alumni, so I might get a book talk through them. I just got off of a cruise, and I'm doing a podcast in a couple of weeks through the cruise through Seabourn, and they might give me two more book presentations in Austin,
Nice.
Texas, and in Atlanta. So I'm busy. Like I said, I don't say no to anything, and you never know what's going to come up. I still try to reach out to people that don't know about the book, and more importantly, just help in the fight against hate.
And I think that's a great message. You're spraying, doing a great job, Robert. And who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
My dad would be one. There's 100 people. I mean, Gordon Zay is a neuroradiologist at Yale, fantastic guy. He's retired now. I can go back. You can go back to elementary school. Miss Fadgen. There's so many. The movie Apocalypse Now, Redux. Apocalypse Now is a great influencer and a motivator while I was doing this project. It's another 20-minute discussion, but a great Heart of Darkness was the book. We read that in high school, and that was the beginning of that. That was where the story there I was. Other influencers, so many. I mean, the sports influences, Barry Sanders, Joe Dumars, the guys that are class acts while they're so talented, but they're modest people. And by the way, we should be following more Gandhi and Moses and Noah and Jesus rather than listening to the other idiots they're promoting hate and all the other BS that causes murders. And we're following the wrong people sometimes, and that's another big
Mm-hmm.
message too.
And of course the sports figures as well too. Like back in your days with the Red Wings, like Steve Eiserman, or like with who do we cover? Let's see, the
Class
Tigers.
acts. Class
Yes,
acts.
Class X and D, Kirk Gibson. I mean, you can do all the flashbacks you want. I mean, just amazing stuff. And lastly, what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
There's no substitute for experience. As we say in radiology, you can learn something for every case, realize that every case is a person, it's not a case, but there is no substitute for experience. Be a team player. If you don't like what you're doing, change vectors, pivot, write a book, write a poem, go to the library, volunteer at the hospital, like buy your neighbor a cup of coffee, spend more time with your family, give back to the community. Those are all things that you can do, and then reach out to government to find out what they're doing about local hate and make sure that you're protected. At least the guns aren't pointed at us right now, and I hope it stays that way.
And I think that's great advice as well, too, in times like these, Robert. That's very good advice. We're here with author Robert Wolf, amazing Robert Wolf of Not a Real Enemy here on the Mike Wagner Show. Robert, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely fantastic. Learned a lot. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Laugh have you back. And what's your website? How do people contact you? Where can people purchase or check out your book?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And what's your website again?
Oh, robertjwolfmd.com. If you Google Robert J. Wolf, MD or Not a Real Enemy, you will find me.
Certainly will do as well. Once again, Robert, very big thank you for your time. You've been absolutely amazing. Looking forward to having soon. Keep us up to date. Keep in touch. Love have you back. We wish you all the best. And Robert, you definitely have a great future ahead.
Thanks.